Nathan, Collins, it is wonderful to see y'all. I thought we could introduce ourselves real quick, but we are here to talk about Owen Barfield saving the appearances. This is something that I know that Nathan and I have brainstormed, heartstormed, schemed about, dreamed about for a few months, maybe. And we're just taking the deep dive and jumping in. So I'm going to introduce myself real quick, y'all. I'm Matt Boulter. I'm the rector of Christ. No, I'm not. I'm the rector of St. George's in Thailand. And no, I'm not. What is wrong with me?
I don't know.
East Central Austin. It's pouring down rain here at the moment.
Yes.
And we'll see if the power goes out. But it is good to be here. Yeah, why don't y'all introduce yourselves real quick?
Okay, Collins, you want to go?
Sure. My name's Collins Aki. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I write and teach. I'll be an English instructor at Montgomery Bell Academy starting this fall, and I write. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I know, of course, Matt and Nathan. When I lived in Austin, attended both churches, Matt's church and Nathan's. What was the name of the
I tried St. Basil's. Is what
Basil?
we
Yeah, same Basil. Yes.
That was fun.
Yeah.
When did you move to Tennessee, Collins?
I moved in 2014, so it'll be exactly 10 years this August.
Yeah, no wonder I haven't seen you around in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Moved to go to Vandy to get my MTS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we're just all kind of doing introductions, like people are just listening to us from Adam.
Yes.
All right. I'm Nathan Jennings, and I am an Episcopal priest and also the professor of liturgics and Anglican studies at Seminary of the Southwest, where I have other administrative roles as well. That's me.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all, so as always, I'm flying by the seat of my pants at the moment. I feel like, so my hope, and I'm just going to sort of assume that I'm the leader a little bit, whatever, just to get it going.
Yeah, you called it. You take over.
But so my hope is that today, like in an hour, I'm going to be pretty hardcore about that hour time limit. My hope is that we can get through chapters 1 through 3. And I think I know chapters 1 through 3. But here's what's bothering me at the moment. I really wanted to read, and I can't believe I didn't do it. Like the total of 5 pages that comprise the introduction to the Wesleyan edition. Nathan, do you have a paper copy of the book?
Yeah.
And it's this one, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Because he makes an intriguing claim on the very first page, which is my page 5. I wanted to read the introduction to that, which came out 30 years, I think, after the original publication of the book. And I also wanted to read his original introduction. Wow. And I've read him in the past, but it's been a while. Anyway, I want to read a statement from the very first page 5, that I think is really provocative. But before I do that, do y'all want to say anything at all? Anything on your heart, mind, plate? Maybe I think I'd like to read my little opening salvo.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping that you would do, just to situate this conversation for people who are not aware of what this is about.
Yeah, and I thought about like, oh, here's the historical background on Barfield. Yeah, all that's good and valuable, but I don't know. We're not doing that, if that's okay.
Nah, let's jump into the ideas, what's going on.
Yeah, and the text.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my opening statement, if y'all don't mind. I get up really early. I'm a morning person, and I had a really good morning this morning before service at St. George's. And this is what came to me over the last few years, largely through the output and the work and the thought of David Bentley Hart. Over the last few years, what I've come to see is that Christianity or for the purposes of this conversation, I'm just going to say the New Testament is, and this is a weird word, paranormal. That's a weird word. Christianity, the New Testament, it messes with and undermines and destroys and deconstructs our normal assumptions about everyday life. Hence, the task for the church, or for the teacher, preacher, evangelist, apologist, Christian, disciple, preacher, that our task is to make the faith strange again. This is why we need Barfield, why he's so important. He helps us make the faith strange again in just the right ways. Yeah.
Okay.
That down.
All right. So did you want us to speak to that, or do you want to read from page 5?
Either one.
A follow-up to that?
I don't know if page 5 is a follow-up to it. Let me just say, how does that strike y'all, what I just read?
I mean, I thought it was interesting. Two things. One, what I wanted to know what you meant by the New Testament is paranormal, and then two, how has the faith become less strange now, and what is at stake in making it strange?
I'm going to take the second question first in hopes that we'll all forget about the first one. So I think that the faith became, here's my answer. I think the faith was strange in the patristic age. And I don't, there's all sorts of things we could talk about. We could talk about, what did the man on the street think? But really, it's this. When I read, for example, on the Incarnation by Saint Athanasius, it's crazy. The world that he's describing, the creation he's describing, is not. It's radically different than the assumptions that sort of I grew up with, just about the ordinary world. And I think that the assumptions that I grew up with are very typical of assumptions that most people in the United States, even in the 21st century, although that's changing, have. So I'm talking about assumptions even about material objects surrounding us. So when I say I'd love to make the world strange again, I would love to make the faith strange again. What I mean is, I would love to help people re-enter imaginatively, for example, into the world of the church fathers and mothers, so that they come to see that the world surrounding them is, it's weird. What the phrase that popped into my mind is from Thales. I want them to see that the world is full of gods.
That's the David Bentley Hart. Doesn't he have a book coming out called that?
I don't know. But
that's a subtitle or something. Yeah.
But look, let me say one more thing at the risk of talking too much, and then maybe we can dive into page 5.
Fine, man.
Let me pause and say, Nathan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I want to let you finish your train of thought before I ask my questions.
Okay. I think that art makes things strange. Sometimes when you see a work of art, it can cause you to perceive, and Saving the Appearances is largely about perception, especially in the early moments. It can make you perceive the world in new ways. That's very connected to imagination. And I just think that that's very helpful for a Christian living in the 21st century in the West, to be able to channel a vibe to people that things are far more strange than you may have thought. And that's, from a Christian perspective, that's helpful and fun and interesting.
Okay. Okay. Can I ask questions?
But I really want to get to page 5, but yes, please.
Okay. So I don't like the word paranormal. It doesn't mean it's wrong. I'm just sharing my reaction, my visceral or emotional response to it.
Yeah.
And so there's two things I wonder in your starting statement. First is why you chose the adjective paranormal. And the second is why are you going to say the New Testament? Why isn't the whole of the scriptures strange? Why are
I
you
wanted to
focusing
raise
on the
that
New
question
Testament?
too.
Good. So again, I'm tempted to take the first question, the second question first, and hope.
Fine, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Do it your way.
So no, we could say the Old and New Testaments.
Okay.
Okay. If your question is specifically New Testament versus Old Testament, if you gave me truth serum, it's probably because of this.
Because of what? Oh. Yeah, what about that?
David Bentley. Right.
It's probably because of that. If you gave me truth serum, I'm just trying to be honest. I think it's, and also like I've been teaching Mere Christianity again and reading through it. I just think that the vocabulary of the New Testament is kind of foundational for thinking about what it means to be a Christian. So even in my sermon this morning, like what's fresh on the brain is the words Zoe and Bios. I don't know. I love the Old Testament, but I guess one way of answering the question, Nathan, would be it keeps it simple, or it keeps it a little simpler.
I think it's more simple to just say scripture.
I agree.
Wow. I think the Old Testament opens up a whole can of worms, but hey, I'm fine with that.
That's the
I
straight.
think I think it opens the same can of worms, or at least from the same shelf of various different worm can varieties.
I like that. Maybe the Old Testament can strangify things even more coupled with the New Testament than the New Testament alone.
Yeah.
You can't look, Matt. I don't even know why we're having this conversation. There is no such thing as the New Testament alone. You know that. That's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason why I'm confused by your word choice. But anyway.
Oh, I love it.
All right. So then, why are you using the word? Oh no, Collins, go ahead.
No. I think mine will be, and it's just a word thing. But finish yours, Nathan.
Yeah, no. Then I wanted to say why paranormal. Like, okay, the reason why I worry that is because of like the whole Henri de Lubac helping us to realize that nature, supernature, is actually a very modern nominalist way of looking at the world and at reality, and that prior to that construction of things, no one thought, for example, that like angels were supernatural. Angels aren't supernatural, they're just higher than us in the same shared cosmos. Right? There's not like the natural and then, whoa, we flip a switch and now it's supernature. Right? But instead, there's just one creation, one beautiful cosmos that God has made with like a rich and complicated and overlapping hierarchy. The angels are higher up in the hierarchy than we are, but we're all natural. We're all natural beings, you know? So that that helps with getting us back on track with like nature grace relationships in theology, and getting us back on track with like having one end, our one purpose is union with God, contemplation of God, praise of God. So that's been very important to me. So when I hear paranormal, that seems to be in the same category of words and concepts that you would put the word supernatural in. That comes from a kind of acosmism. I don't know. Talking. Do you see what I'm saying, Matt?
Oh yeah, I do. And the reason I chose it is because I had the word normal in mind.
Okay.
But I probably chose it to be provocative and also a little bit edgy, maybe. I know.
See, we're gonna call you out on that kind of bullshit, man.
Please do. Please keep it up. But I think you could I'm gonna just say the New Testament is strange.
Yes, that's good.
That's all.
And just one last thing. to bring it more to, I guess, where I'm more what I'm more familiar with for my way into this conversation. When you said strange, I thought about an old way to say strange, which is queer.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and I wanted to know, and for if you want to call it postmodern or just contemporary thought, how does queer, both as another way to say strange, and how it's come, to be used now, because there is a relationship with how it was and how it's used now, even though it's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how is the notion of queer, regardless of how it's used, working in your idea of making the church strange again, or making the faith strange again?
Interesting.
I'm not sure it is. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. So you're the one throwing out the word queer,
Mm-hmm.
but I will say that my long-term goal, long term, wasn't wanting this to come up today or tomorrow or the next day or next week, but my long-term goal in this does have a lot to do with LGBTQ stuff and queer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that that's way down the road.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Well, I just wanted to know. I just want to know if you had that in your head. It's good to know that that's because
Oh,
it's connected in some sense, or it's implicated in some sense, and we'll find out where you're
awesome.
going.
I'm going to read page 5, okay? The bottom.
Okay.
I want to know what y'all think about this.
Okay.
And this book is not easy, by the way.
No, it's not.
All right. The introduction to this book, the introduction to the first edition expressly states that the object of the book is to evoke in the reader, pay close attention, a sustained acceptance as distinct from a mere theoretical admission of the relation assumed by physical science to subsist between human consciousness on the one hand, and on the other, the familiar world of which that consciousness is aware.
Man, he still just cannot write a straightforward sentence. Okay. A sustained acceptance.
Yeah, as distinct from a theoretical admission.
No, but I'm taking out any extraneous clauses. A sustained acceptance of the relation assumed by physical science to subsist between human consciousness and the familiar world that consciousness is aware of. That seems to be the core thing, the core phrase when you take the subordinate, the other clauses out.
Mm-hmm.
And what does he mean by that, Matt? I thought he's trying to disrupt that sustained acceptance. I thought what the book was about was that we can't help but accept that, and that's what we need to trouble.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe he's talking about the way that alpha thinking becomes figuration in the next generation. Maybe what he's trying to say is actually we don't have a sustained acceptance of this distinction, that most of us have collapsed the scientific construction of reality into our daily figuration of things. And he's trying to drive a wedge in that and remind us that theory and the phenomenal world are separate from each other.
Okay.
Yeah. I think like it's the assumption. I think he wants to say that, at least from just the first three chapters, he wants us to make explicit what is smuggled in or assumed.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make that explicit, and then let's look at that connection or that relationship. And it's not just a theoretical kind of relationship, which of course it's the participation that he's going to reach for later. But yeah, I think he wants to kind of call physical science on its bullshit of like trying to have its cake and eat it too. And that's mine.
Right.
Yeah, but it's very interesting how he worded it, though. I mean,
yeah,
So he's talking about a relationship, a relation which is assumed by physical science.
Right.
Now, he wants to evoke a sustained acceptance of that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, Nathan? Like, that's kind of crazy.
Say again.
He's given a high five to this relationship, at least in this.
Yeah, because one way to look at what he's doing is that he's trying to write a book of popular science. Now, whether he succeeded or not is hilarious, but okay, you guys know Walker Percy, right?
Yeah.
So like one of my favorite books by him is called Lost in the Cosmos, the last self-help book. Right. And now, of course, by that, he doesn't think that when he publishes that book, no one will ever publish a self-help book again, right? He just means it in more like an existential sense. And so that's kind of what's going on here. It's like Saving the Appearances, the last popular science book. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to come in. But just like Percy was really trying to help you out with his last self-help book, so too, I do think Barfield is trying to say, you guys wake up and remember what science actually is. And he loves science. Science is freaking amazing. It does amazing things. He's a big believer. He wants to empower science by shaking us free from its own idolatry.
Yes, not shaking us free from it.
No. Empirical, rigorous scientific study of things is one of the awesome things that human beings can do.
Also, some of the assumptions that science makes, modern science, are good.
Right.
For him.
It's just what he's worried about. What I think is the fundamental insight, or right now, that the insight of his that is most striking me, let me put it that way, is that whole thing where, okay, so there's the figuration, alpha thinking, and beta thinking, right?
We're going to get
probably, if we're going to share this podcast with other people at some point, we need to edit in like one of us defining those things, because I'm just going. You can't stop me right now. So you got those three things, right? But one of the insights I realized that's been really formative for me is that in one generation, their alpha thinking about a certain figuration or set of figurations that they have can, in the subsequent generation or so, actually then just become their figuration. It no longer counts as alpha thinking anymore. The general cultural imaginary has taken that on, and that is just simply how they figure things now. I think that's what he's saying has happened to modern natural science, is that the early scientists knew that they were doing alpha thinking on figures. And then due to their great success, we now have kids like me growing up in school looking at models of the solar system or drawings of Bohr's model of the atom and saying, that's what that looks like.
Right.
That's just what that is. That's what the universe looks like. And so that it's become an idol, because that's not what modern science thinks anything is. But this artist's rendition and the simplified popular version of it is what we have now taken up as our idolatrous relationship to it. And that's why he calls it Saving the Appearances, a study in idolatry, and why I give it the subtitle, The Last Popular Science Book, because he's trying to kind of tear down popular science because of its idolatrous relationship to science. Science is great. Popular science turns the unbelievable mind-shaking theories of science into something idolatrously graspable.
Dude, that is awesome.
And he wants to shake that up.
Yeah. He's critiquing popular science.
Right.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So, want to define some terms?
Okay. Yeah.
Does that sound good to y'all? Anything else you want to say, Collins, Nathan?
No.
I'm good for now. Let's go.
All right. So, this is just a little thing about Barfield's 4 stages of representation. And I think this gets us through chapters 1 through 3, honestly. I mean,
and then we'll go back and look at texts.
We can. We can. We can. In fact,
we should.
We
Would you
should.
like to do that? You want to go through this first and then hit the text?
Well, Matt, why don't you just, in the simplest way, move through those 1, 2, 3, highlight the main parts of those steps, and then let's go through the text and let's see how those steps connect through the text. Because of course we don't get to the last two, right? Because we're just doing the first three chapters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
yeah,
I think they're all in the first 3 chapters.
I don't think it gets to
No.
participation in chapter 3.
Agreed.
Just
not-
get us started, Matt. Just get us
Good.
started. We'll go to the text.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to list them first. Perception, figuration, alpha thinking, beta thinking.
Okay.
That gets us through chapters 1 through 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, notice I did not say participation.
So what is his distinction between perception and figuration? I thought that all perception involves figuration.
Yeah,
No.
he doesn't have a distinction, at least in the
No.
first chapter. It's figurations first.
Yeah, that's what I recall.
Yeah, the percipient.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but I think that there's one place where he says, quote, something like the following. Perception is everything involved in apprehending the world except for figuration. He says something like that.
But then that's nothing as far as I can tell. He's trying to say no perception without figuration.
No, eyeballs do something.
Yeah, but not in terms. I mean, yeah, there is that part, but he's also connecting it to consciousness, which is where figuration, in a sense, is the point of departure.
Look, let me read, and then we'll
read something. Yeah,
and then we'll hit the text, because maybe I'm wrong. Okay, first you have perception. This is very simply the activity of our sense organs, eyes, ears, etc., by which they receive or take in external stimuli. In the case of, this is important, in the case of touch, matter, and in the case of hearing, sound.
Mm-hmm.
The upshot here, as Barfield explains in chapter 2, is that we hear and touch neither particles nor the represented, nor actual things like dogs, chairs, or ambulance sirens. A corollary here is that when we take ourselves to hear an ambulance siren or a thrush singing, we are employing not just our ears, but many other dimensions of who we are in addition, such as memory, imagination, etc.
Yeah.
So you don't hear a siren, you hear sound.
Right, of course.
You don't touch water.
See, that's weird. That's weird for Barfield for me because again, that seems uncharacteristic of him because that's already like a scientific theory of perception. That's already doing alpha thinking on a certain concept of how eyes and ears work. I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
I think but he does say that they kind of happen, in certain cases all at once, and one influences the other. Even though he distinguishes them, he doesn't give it any kind of at least temporal order.
Right.
Okay.
I think he gives them a logical order, though, or
logical order, yes.
A phenomenological order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I'm prepared to defend this first paragraph like right here and right now, but I'm pretty sure that is an accurate representation. He does talk about perception, and this is how he talks about it.
Okay.
One thing that I wanted to say, and it kind of links to the like you said, we don't hear a siren, we hear a sound. I was wondering, and I guess the memory part is the language part, because I was wondering, why doesn't he use the word language, and how language shapes the way that we process that figuration, to say that I hear a siren, and that connects to the memory and whatever. That was a part that I didn't see clear. I guess it's just assumed in there. But
okay, so here's what I would say to that. We're not there yet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like The moment you think that you're hearing a thrush, language is coming into play, and therefore imagination and all sorts of things. We're not there yet.
Yeah, maybe not language, but definitely figuration.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
think-
agree with that. So I hear what you're doing, Matt. What you're saying is you find in Barfield that there is a distinction between perception and figuration. Okay, then that said, I think perception is pre-thought.
Yes.
Right. Figuration is a form of thinking. Alpha is an initial level reflective thinking on the figures.
Yes.
And then beta is thinking about thinking. Right.
Okay, let's keep going. Yes. That's great. I'm going to keep going. Okay. Second, there is figuration. Figuration is the mental activity by which we identify or recognize a thing in the world. A dog, a chair, a thrush singing. Figuration, Barfield says, is, quote, all that is in the representation which is not sensation. That's the quote I had in mind earlier.
That's a touch.
Yeah. So, Nathan, you can't deny right there that he's distinguishing between sensation on the one hand and figuration on the other. Right?
Yeah. And what does he mean that? What does he mean all that's in it that isn't in the sensation? What, again, his own thinking makes me trouble that right now he sounds so physical reductionist. He sounds so much like an empiricist.
Dude, I think I can help you here. So let's forget about hearing sounds and just focus on touching matter, okay?
Okay, all right.
So if you think about the way Aristotle talks about matter.
Okay.
So granted, it's a theoret. Granted, when Aristotle talks about matter, he's doing a kind of alpha thinking. Yeah. But for Aristotle, matter, he literally says the only thing we can say about prime matter is that it's spatially extended. It's not an object. It's not a thing in the world. It's not recognizable.
Okay. I see. So roughly, instead of trying to map it to like Kant or empirical science, we could map it to Aristotle, and then it makes sense. So what you're saying is perception is kind of like awareness of prime material, and figuration is when we are able to participate in the form of the thing.
Yeah, I think perception, I wouldn't say awareness of the prime material, I would say interaction with.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's stimulus.
Encounter.
Yeah. Although stimulus is a modern term, but yeah.
Sure.
But I got you. Okay.
Now, Nathan, let me say, I'm convinced that everything I said about Aristotle vis-a-vis matter is also applicable to Plato. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, I think so. But Collins, were you going to say something?
Well, I just wanted to say, I still think the figuration part, it seems to be, I think language has to play a role. It's whatever gets us to trigger language. I find in figuration.
Good. Yes. I think that perception is pre-language.
Yeah.
But perception alone is pre-language, in my opinion.
Yes. Which is sense, right? Because sense comes first, and then you think about it and you put it where it needs to go.
That's right.
Or you define it. Okay.
And you know what? I think that I just had a helpful heuristic device. Let's assume that dogs and cats are irrational and utterly lack language. Barfield would say that they still perceive.
Of course.
They still touch matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They still hear sound. They might not hear a thrush.
No.
But they still touch matter and hear sound, I think Barfield would say.
This is where, speculation about animals and our relationship to them and theirs to ours is tough, because I know what y'all mean when y'all want to say that a dog doesn't hear a thrush. But also, they can distinguish one bird call from another.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing.
Yeah. I was just using
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We call it a thrush. They call it whatever.
Right. That's the reason why I was trying gently to separate figuration from language.
I know.
Not Collins, because I think that they are ultimately separable, but because Yeah, because sometimes our figuration is pre or nonverbal, but I still think it's legitimately figuration. I mean, I can see a triangle in a pattern of tiles without the word triangle coming to my mind. I don't need the word triangle to see a triangle.
No, but do you need to know of the word triangle to identify it as a triangle? That's when I mean language, I don't necessarily mean verbal.
Oh, okay.
I mean, semiotic, being able to move through
Oh,
science
okay.
and, define them. So, yeah, so it's like if no one ever told you of the word triangle, right?
Yeah, you still, yeah.
You
All
may
right,
not.
Collins, I hear what you're saying.
Okay,
I think what I was going to say is that figuration is the bed of language.
I agree with that.
So that it's woven together for
hmm
sure.
I agree. That's what I
Okay.
wanted to distinguish. I
Okay.
understand there's a pre side, if you will, or whatever,
Yeah.
or a for side of language. And yeah, okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So the only reason I brought up dogs and cats was as a heuristic device.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm right here.
Yeah.
Again, while we hear not a thrush singing but a mere sound, we perceive or recognize or figurate an actual thrush. In the process, we are using faculties in addition to mere sense perception, strictly speaking. Again, psychical powers such as memory and imagination.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm not going to say anything about language right now.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. So, y'all, we've talked about perception and figuration. Now we're going to move to alpha thinking, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Third, Barfield coins a novel term, right? The previous two terms are not novel, I don't think. Maybe figuration a little bit, but this one's definitely novel. Barfield coins a novel term, alpha thinking, to describe a certain process involving thinking about the objects. Side note, even the word object is a modern term, so I'm a little queasy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But involving thinking about the objects or things figurated above.
So now, why did you coin this term figurated? Since there is a verb for that, figure.
Well, why did I put it in quotes?
No, why did you say figurated? Why did you invent a verb? There is a verb for it's to figure, right? Like involving thinking about the objects or things we figure.
Yeah.
Above.
Yeah.
So the reason I did that was I was just trying to allude to
Figuration.
Barfield's notion of figuration.
All right.
But yeah, that's a great point. This is a gesture toward Barfield's term figuration.
Right. But okay. Yeah. We create a figure of something.
Nice.
That's figuration.
Nice. Okay, good. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
So in alpha thinking, we are not now recognizing a dog or a chair. No. We're now thinking about it objectively. We're assuming it to be outside of ourselves. We're studying it. We're investigating its relationships to other things in the world, including causes and effects. Barfield calls this theoretical thinking, and he also notes that it need not be systematic. And that gets to Nathan's point, that one generation's alpha thinking can become the next generation's something else.
Figuration. Yeah.
Barfield calls it, okay, yeah. Modern natural science then would be a kind of alpha thinking, but the latter's not limited to the former. So alpha thinking is more than just modern science.
Yes.
But modern natural science is part of alpha thinking.
Yes.
Thomas Aquinas calls this componendo et dividendo, and another label could be discursive thinking. Yeah. Okay, I'm geeking out a little bit. I'm sorry, but it's good. On the third segment of Plato's line at the end of Book 6 of the Republic, Plato calls this dianoia.
Translate that for me.
Dianoia.
Yeah.
I mean, I call it discursive thinking.
Ah, okay.
Would that be almost like what I'm thinking of when you say, if you go up a bit, Matt, on your objectively, isn't this sort of the third level of the dialectic, assuming it to be outside of ourselves?
Probably. I don't know what you mean by dialectic right now, but probably.
Thinking of just Hegel's, the mind, the dialectic of the mind, finding the distinction, and then seeing it separate from you, because
Right.
you were saying thinking about the objects or things we figured, and then now being able to think about it as if it's not part of us.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
right. And that sounds like one of the early movements in the phenomenology of spirit, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Although what's funny, Boo, is that we're about to get to beta thinking, which I think of as self-consciousness.
Okay.
And that actually might be more along that might map on better to Hegel's third moment. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I actually think that alpha thinking is Hegel's second moment.
Yeah, I think so
yeah,
too.
yeah, because that's the separation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Recognizing the negation.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
First, what's negated first is just
So
it's not self-consciousness, but it's
no.
self. It's being
Yeah.
able to say I guess.
Yeah.
And then there's objects that are not you.
Yeah.
And then there's a higher moment of self-consciousness, I think.
Yeah. I agree. Let's read. Okay, so beta thinking now.
Yeah. Alpha thinking, look, for the purposes of this discussion, what we're really talking about is modern science, I think. I mean,
no, because he would say medieval people do it.
He would, but he's not. Yes. Okay, good.
But he would say that modern science is another form of alpha thinking. I think this is one of those cases where, like, and I do this all the time in my own writing, so I'm guilty of it myself, but it's like, it's one of those times when I think, please just use the traditional words that everyone uses. Define them as specifically and specially as you want to, but like, this is where I get tired of thinkers having to rename everything. Now, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, I'm using this term in a fresh way, and I don't want you to be reminded of the ways that other people have used it. So therefore, let's just call it this. But it's work, right? When he could have just said, I like figuration, that's fine. But then he could have just said theoretical and reflective thinking, or theoretical and philosophical thinking. It just bothers me because a lot of times when I'm reading him, I'm having to just go back and translate it in my mind to remind myself what he's talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's good for the purposes of sharing this. Like you said, Nathan, reminding people when we're saying alpha thinking, you're just saying theoretical thinking.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think that it's a lot of people get confused. A lot of people don't understand what theoretical thinking means.
Right. And it means something different than what the ancients meant by theory or contemplation.
100%.
Which is, again, maybe the reason why he wanted to coin his own phrase for it.
Yeah, I think that so let's come up with some traditional vocabulary terms for alpha thinking. Here's one, ratio.
Sure. Yeah.
Ratio, and as opposed to intellectus. And this is again where I think about Plato's line. And I don't know how familiar y'all are with that, but ratio would be one of the ways of translating this Greek word dianoia into Latin.
Got it. Very good.
And it's not the highest level. The highest level for Plato would be nous.
Right.
Yes.
Or maybe noesis.
Yep.
Yeah, because dianoia is, correct me if I'm wrong, it has the same shares some of the same etymology of discursive, is it, or even ratio? Aristotle thinks about it as you can move along a space of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
And a space of thoughts thinking about objects.
Yeah.
Right. But that
Or
highest form of
premises in
thinking,
an argument.
that highest form of thinking for Plato is not Barfield's beta thinking, but Barfield's final participation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is true. That is an awesome point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. So it's not as if Barfield is retracing the moments of Plato's lion here.
No, I think there's a relationship. Keep going.
And also, just one thing, that's where I would say Aristotle would differ, because he doesn't have a final thing, right? Because eudaimonia isn't intellectual, or even Aquinas would say something similar. No, Matt, of the idea of you just keep going up and up and up. It's infinite.
Well, I don't know if he would say it's infinite, but here Aristotle is a good Platonist because he thinks that what the human nature is contemplation. He agrees with Plato that the fulfillment of being a human being is to contemplate the highest reality, which is for him the unmoved mover.
Right.
So there, Aristotle and Plato are in core enough agreement to say that they're in agreement.
I agree. Yeah, because it's not eudaimonia, Boo. It's contemplation. And there's two. He does that in the metaphysics, Aristotle does, and in the Nicomachean ethics. And I can send you those references.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with that. That one part. There's just the part with Aquinas, with kind of how he thinks about the human and interacting with God in terms of the intellect, and he uses the word that it is infinite in terms of the nature of the way the intellect continues to gain, not grow, but go up and up and up, and he just says infinite. But so that's what I was saying. It seems like with Plato, there's just this, you get to this one moment and then you're there. Aquinas seems to make it, it's almost the same thing, but it's just infinite. He uses that word. Anyway.
Yeah. By the time we get to Aquinas, we have the Christian encounter with God as infinite.
Yeah.
Much more clearly articulated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Okay, I'm going to keep reading.
Beta thing.
Finally, we have Barfield's final stage of representation, and I hope that I said that correctly. And his second neologism, sorry, Nathan, beta thinking, involving self-conscious reflection upon ourselves, our own minds, and our own mind's relationship to other things and activities. Barfield says that disciplines such as physiology, psychology, and philosophy are the ones that engage in beta thinking. Yeah, and I think I misstepped a little bit in this paragraph, but yeah, self-consciousness, thinking about thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right.
Y'all, we could stop with my stuff.
Yeah.
And dive into the text now.
Yeah.
Because we got about 10 minutes left, and then we need to take a break from this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's look at some text these last 10 minutes, and then let's take a break.
Cool. So yeah, I hope someone else is prepared to take us into the text.
I'm looking.
Nice. Okay. While you're looking, I'm going to say this. The rainbow is a collective representation. That's chapter 1. So, and surely language, what he's saying is when y'all and I look out and see a rainbow, it feels like we're just seeing it. But actually, there's a lot more going on.
See, and it's exactly the rainbow analogy that makes it difficult for me to understand the distinction he's trying to make between perception and figuration. Because I think a dog sees a rainbow.
But the dog sees something, Nathan.
Yeah.
But it cannot be the case that the dog sees a rainbow, because the word rainbow is a concept.
Not tying it to language more than I want to.
But yeah, that's just language. Yeah.
Yeah.
The dog sees, it's like saying, I see a cat in English and I see a chat in French. We still see the same thing. We just call it something different.
Yeah.
Damn, Nathan just called me out of my Aristotelianism.
Right. Like, I mean, like a dog recognizes a cat and they can tell the difference between a cat and another dog. And yeah.
That doesn't that doesn't amount to recognition necessarily.
I think we're much more animal than we want to be.
I agree. All human, all too human.
Yeah. And I think that, yeah, sorry, we're getting derailed.
Yeah.
Let's get to some, let's get
The
to
rainbow for Barfield, the rainbow is a collective representation.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go to page 12. The
Okay.
top part, and it seems like this is where he's kind of, at least where I saw him. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to jump to 13. So he says, physical science has for a long time stressed the enormous difference, and even the enormous difference between what it investigates as the actual structure of the universe, ... which are presented by that structure to normal human consciousness. And then he goes on and says, yeah, at all events since Kant, in tune with this, most philosophy, ... has heavily emphasized the participation of man's own mind in the creation or evocation of these phenomena. So here I see him highlighting the physical science stresses this enormous difference, and then philosophy, on the other hand, it seems, has emphasized the participation that we have in the so-called investigation. And then on the next page, he says which is the page 13, he says the greater part of this book consists, in fact, of a rudimentary attempt to remedy the omission. So it does seem like he's whatever physical science is doing and what philosophy is doing, it seems like he wants to show that it's all, there's an assumption that is not being, like there's an elephant in the room.
Yes.
That we just don't want to talk about.
Yes. It's as if he's saying, hey, people, do y'all believe in physical science? Then you need to admit at least one of your huge, massive assumptions.
Yeah.
And let me tell you about that assumption.
And what is the elephant? And what is the assumption?
The assumption, well, he's saying, according to philosophy, is that we have there's a participation of man's own mind in the creation of this phenomena, the figuration, so on and so forth. Yeah. But physical science stresses the enormous difference.
Yeah.
Between what it investigates.
Right. So Nathan, and Boo, like everything that Collins just said, Kant would give a high five to.
Exactly. That's what I'm hearing.
So one of the cool things that the three of us are going to be able to do in a few weeks is to drill down on Barfield's putative critique of Kant.
Right.
But for now, they're kind of saying the same thing, although Kant's not going to emphasize participation.
No. Because Kant's going to say something about the analytic, right? Which is that distinction.
Yeah, and I also think that Kant would just agree with the modern scientists on page 12 to say they're different.
Yeah.
Wait, what is different? You said they're different. What is different from what?
Yeah, the actual structure of the universe on the one hand.
Mm-hmm.
And human consciousness.
Okay.
No.
No.
The actual structure of the universe on the one hand, I'm just reading.
Okay.
And
and the phenomena or appearances which are presented by that structure. So
to the normal human consciousness.
the difference is between actual structure on the one hand and phenomena on the other. That's the difference.
Right. Okay. But even there, Plato's going to agree with Kant, and Kant's going to agree with Plato, which is
Praise God.
right? Which is that the world is a confusing place. Things aren't always what they seem. How do we figure out what's really going on?
That's what I mean by strangeify.
That's what all philosophers, that's what most philosophers are trying to do. That's the beginning of philosophy. Wow. The world is a strange and interesting place, and sometimes things aren't as they seem. They appear differently than they really are.
Hence
Why is that? And how do we get past that? Every philosopher is trying to do that.
Yeah, that's what I meant by paranormal.
Okay, right. It's just that at that point, then the two, in my opinion, two most important and genius voices in Western philosophy exactly part ways at the moment they try to answer that question, Plato and Kant.
Okay, but y'all listen. Here's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
If you read On the Incarnation by Athanasius,
Yeah.
he's assuming the strangeness.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at, like, I'm just going to say Christian thinkers today, although are there still any left? I mean, I don't know. Christians today don't assume the strangeness, but Athanasius did.
Mm-hmm.
That's what blows my mind.
Okay.
I think that if I could download that into the brains of undergraduates, half of them would become Christians.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Collins, what were you saying?
No, I just like, I think sure, because somebody could easily say, Matt, that you're being anachronistic, and of course they thought that way because there was not the modern science, modern science, they didn't have that. So of course, they thought like that. But what I do like is how he's trying to show that. I'm sorry, what was it? Yes.
How do you think? Here's what they thought, the ancients. Are you ready?
Okay.
They thought that the world is a blooming, buzzing confusion.
In the main, yeah.
So they thought that the only reason we think we can see cats and dogs is because because of God.
What do you mean?
But there's a very real sense in which the world is just a blooming, buzzing confusion, and what's actually real without God is chaos or something like that. So, see, I hope I'm making sense right now. Like, I don't know if modern science fixes that. So I don't think I'm being anachronistic. If I'm being anachronistic...
Well, wait. Collins, what did you mean when you said that you thought Matt was being anachronistic?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that somebody can say, "Oh, you want to think like somebody, thousands of years ago." That just seems nostalgic and anachronistic. Oh, there's development of consciousness. I mean, this book is also a study of the evolution of human consciousness.
Yes.
And so if consciousness has evolved, I do think that he is right to say, yes, it has evolved, but it hasn't changed. It's not a new species. And so why is there some sort of fundamental difference now in how we think about consciousness as opposed to then?
Yeah. I think that that's one of my biggest takeaways from Barfield is that as I've gone back, okay, so I read Barfield back when I was an undergrad at UT because Lewis Mackey recommended it to me, and it absolutely blew my mind. One of the most important books I've ever read. That's why I'm having fun talking about it with you guys and looking forward to continuing to talk about it with you guys. But what happened is then I went off and got a PhD and I got all this training in philosophy and theology. And then when I went back and read it, I was like, I don't know, Barfield. And then I was confronted with all the ways I disagreed with him. And so now, I mean, it's synthesis, antithesis, and thesis, antithesis, synthesis in my own life before your very eyes. The Hegelian dialectic is unfolding. So like now Matt has brought me back around to really want to pay attention to him again and grab him. And I think where I am now is that every time he says something that bugs me, I just ignore it and I go to the part that gives me insight. I can't, I don't have the time or energy in my latter days to get in there and try to analyze exactly why I like his use of this word and don't like his use of that word. Here's what it is. Here's one of the many things that I take away from Barfield that I think is brilliant. And that is, a history of ideas is misleading. A history of consciousness is helpful. Because when you're giving a history of ideas, you are being anachronistic. You are projecting back onto our own culture our own Western culture in previous times and other non-Western cultures, a very contemporary modern cultural understanding of human beings as something that have ideas. And what he says is that ideas is one kind of alpha thinking.
Yeah.
It's not even the alpha thinking of every culture, but we all are conscious. We all are aware. Let's study that. And what I love about it is that, again, going back to reading the scriptures, understanding our own medieval ancestors, understanding the church fathers, going back to the scriptures, like you will get people, smart people, that will sit there and they'll open the Bible and they'll be like, but why would God send plagues on the Egyptians? That seems like, what a mean God. I don't know if that's the God I can believe in. I mean, smart people will read the first chapters of Exodus and be very troubled by the plagues. And because of Barfield, that absolutely just boggles my mind. I'm like, that the people that wrote this down and the people that encountered whatever phenomena led them to have this encounter with God, they didn't just have different ideas of God. They were having an entirely different conscience encounter with reality. Anyway, I'll stop there. That's my big takeaway.
Yep, that's a great closing statement.
Yes, that was
Nathan. Colin, have a closing statement?
No, my only if I do is I too want to I support the idea of keeping, I don't think it's lost, keeping or bringing to the fore strangeness, because I do think if we can in some circles recover it, in other circles support it, I do think, Matt, that we are better equipped to address your long-term goal that you had mentioned.
Excellent. So I have a two-part closing statement, and they're both very short. One is I cannot deny that I want people to be nihilists before they become Christians. The way I want to make Christians is by turning them into nihilists.
That's hilarious. I want them to be pagans first. So we can start there next time. Why does Matt want them to be nihilists?
Yeah.
Why does Nathan want them to be pagans?
Sounds
I'm
great.
on Nathan's side here, Matt. I'm sorry.
Right?
So as always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, second closing statement from me is that here's one of the reasons I like Barfield, and that he's conservative.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is he's one of the inklings. He's a freaking inkling. And yet he's dropping hand grenades and dynamite. He's like blowing stuff up, causing Christians to reevaluate everything that they think they believe. And not just Christians, secular people, modern people. So he's coming at, he's provocative and radically, I don't want to say deconstructive. That makes me throw up a little bit. He's very provocative.
He's a deconstructive, though.
But from a deeply, deeply, deeply traditional point of view, that's why he's an ally for me.
Okay. All right, so then we'll need to go. That's another thing to put on. Are you writing down our agenda for next time, Matt?
Yeah.
So we've got
I don't think Matt will keep up with it.
well, we've got pagan versus nihilist, and then we've
Yes.
also got like what do we mean when we say the word conservative, and
Yeah.
what is the relationship of the Inklings to that? What is the relationship of Barfield to that? Because I think that that's not. I think that's something is there, but also it's not uncomplicated.
Amen. What I really meant was traditional, but yes.
Traditional, yeah, okay, but still, but I think traditional / conservative, defining some of those terms would be helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. This was great for me. Thanks.
Yeah, me too.
Me too, y'all. That's super fun. All right.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
See y'all again soon.
Yes.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, Matt, let us know.
Collins.
Yeah, yes, likewise, Nathan. And let us know what's the next, what are we reading next? So I'll know what to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'll be in touch.
Take care.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye, brothers.